So firstly, apologies that I didn't make it to the live action, but I have listened to the conversation and I did want to jump in a few times, not in disagreement actually, in agreement with what was being said. So a few thoughts. I think that traditional timetabling sits in opposition to what we know about flow and deep learning. Pretty sure we've all read the books, and we know that to go deep we need to go slow. When we, the adults, are doing our best work, our hard thinking, our creative thinking, and we're in flow, the last thing we need is a bell to tell us to stop thinking, stop creating, stop working, pack up your bag and move. My second thought is that traditional timetabling doesn't allow for deeply personal learning because, like David said, it's built on that assumption that we're going to deliver the same learning experience to a group of children at the same time in the same place. So I think, there needs to be a shift away from that kind of thinking and planning. More to that point, I think we need to upend the way we actually think about learning design, and make it our job to work out how do we make what we have to offer available to students when they need it rather than when it suits us. How might we design schools so that learners could actually plan their own days within constraints if they have to be there? If we're constrained by government policies which tell us we have to have so many minutes allocated to so many subjects, those are constraints that we can't change. But if we give them choice around when and where they are doing those minutes, then at least we give them agency and choice, and access to whatever it is they need in that moment in time. And I don't think we should ignore leveraging technology in this conversation at all. I think it's our friend. Before I even heard David refer to this, I had already written myself a note regarding learning out of silos. So I think one of the easiest ways to start to break the notion of traditional timetabling is through transdisciplinary projects, for the same reasons that he mentioned. Suddenly you can open up these big chunks of time because you've taken the minutes from all of those subjects. Learners can get deeply into their work when they are offered those long chunks of time, rather than in some high schools still we've got 35-minute blocks, which I feel is completely ludicrous. By the time you've unpacked your bag, unpacked your pencil case, fired up your laptop, had a chat to your friend, there's your 35 minutes gone. I think we can add value to that idea by really exploring team teaching, collaborative teaching, so that students can actually access a range of experts within that one big chunk of time, depending on which element of a transdisciplinary project that they are working on in that moment. I wanted to refer us back to Thornburg's work on places and modes. Where is your campfire? Where is your watering hole? The whole idea of a watering hole is that the animals don't all go there at the same time. They go when they're thirsty. So what does that look like in a learning setting? What kind of things need to be available at the watering hole other than just water? So I think those models are going to be really helpful as we continue to try and think outside traditional timetabling. Where are your masterclasses? Where are your pop-ups? How can you adopt a just-in-time approach to that masterclass piece rather than a just-in-case? Front-loading children at the beginning of a term for something they might need in week 9, it's not working. It's never really worked. But we've actually got to stop and reverse our thinking. And on that, I think it needs a flip of mindset for the educator, whose job it is now, I think, to let the children's learning lead the way. And our role is to know the curriculum so that we can hang it on what we're seeing, ask the right questions, provoke, challenge where learners are taking things. Look at what we're seeing, listen to what we're hearing, hang the curriculum on that rather than letting the curriculum drive the learners. I loved the reminder, Derek, about the old NBCS days. And it was a whole week that we used to break. And the first one we ever did, I think, was called Artists in Residence. And it is as it sounds, except that we didn't pay anything. We were the artists, the educators were the artists, and they offered a week-long project exploration, and students elected into those for a week, and they were multi-age. I think that was the other radical thing about those first attempts at breaking things. The next one, which I think you remember, Derek, was Taste, See, Tinker. And again, it was what happens if we don't have constraints and pressures around materials or outcomes, and we do allow children to just taste, see, and tinker, what might come from that. And again, that was a whole week. So then we analysed the elements of the success of those weeks, and we built a course. Essentially, we called it Unlimited because it was not limited by curriculum. It was limited by time still at that point. But then we took out all of the time-wasting elements of a school day, like assemblies and grade meetings, and found that we had a whole day. Yes, a whole day, still meeting all of our mandated minutes, a whole day to just play, to break everything and play. And that program is still going. Thank you, Stephen, for your beach school example. Our version is bush school, and that's got its foundation in Aboriginal 8 ways of learning as the pedagogy. I think what's interesting is that schools have no problem letting kids go on excursions. We all know they're valuable. So let's just expand on the idea of an excursion, and instead of going once a term, let's go once a week to the same place, to engage with it differently, more deeply, to notice changes. Because that way we really are building that notion of a living classroom. And it doesn't have to be the beach or the bush. It could be the city. It could be your local library. It could be anywhere where children are going to be able to break out of that thinking that learning is only happening in a classroom when it's curated by a teacher. So in summary, I always start with, what are we prepared to break? What are we prepared to chuck? What's the smallest change that we can make that's going to have the biggest impact? And what can I try tomorrow to move me towards where I want to be? And then there are the chasms. And we can't cross those ones in small steps. So for those, we've got to ask the question, are we ready to leap? Thanks for having me.